They came into my home when I was still weak from surgery, smiling like family, but speaking like strangers. Every request felt less like help and more like a demand, each word twisting the knife of betrayal a little deeper. I kept thinking they'd stop, that my son would step in, but his silence cut sharper than hers. By the time I saw the truth in the numbers, I knew this wasn't about a vacation. It was about how little they thought of me. Please subscribe my channel and like this video, and comment the name of your city so I can see how far our stories are reaching. My name is Margaret and I am 64-year-old. The afternoon light was too bright for my aching eyes. I shifted on the couch and the stitches tugged. A dull ache spread down my side. The faint smell of antiseptic still clung to the air. I could hear the fridge hum in the kitchen. The front door opened without a knock. Claire's heels clicked across the hardwood. Her voice was light, almost too light. "Hi, Mom," she said, setting her purse down. The bright smile didn't reach her eyes. I swallowed, forcing my voice steady. "Hello, Claire. Is Ethan with you?" She nodded toward the doorway. "He's right there," she said, glancing back. Ethan stepped in slowly, leaning on the frame. He didn't meet my eyes. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets. The silence pressed in. Claire pulled a folder from her bag. "Let's take care of something quick," she said. Her tone was casual, but her eyes sharp. She slid the folder onto the coffee table. "What's this?" I asked, sitting up slightly. Pain pinched my side, making me wince. Claire didn't seem to notice. She pushed a pen toward me. "Just sign here," she said. "We're booking our vacation today." I blinked, certain I misheard. "A vacation?" My voice was flat. "Yes," she said, tapping the paper. "It's a great package, flights, hotels, everything." Her nails clicked against the table. "We need to finalize it right now." My gaze dropped to the fine print. The number jumped out first, 5 digits. My stomach tightened. "You want me to pay for this?" Her smile didn't waver, but her tone cooled. "Well, you've always been generous," she said. "And you can't come with us this year." Her eyes flicked to my bandaged side. I looked at Ethan. He still wouldn't look at me. "Did you know about this?" I asked. He shifted his weight. "It's just easier this way," he mumbled. The words stung more than the stitches. Easier for them, harder for me. "Claire," I said slowly, "I just had surgery." My hands trembled slightly on the blanket. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "That's exactly why we're asking now." Her perfume was sharp, too sweet. "You're home resting. No errands, no stress." "It's not about errands," I said. "It's about thousands of dollars." The room seemed colder, air heavier. I could hear my own heartbeat. Claire gave a soft laugh. "You're acting like we're strangers," she said. "It's family. It's a gift." Her eyes dared me to argue. I set the pen down. "I can't sign this," I said firmly. The folder's edges pressed into my leg. Her smile vanished. Ethan cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe just help this one time," he said. "It's been a rough year for us." He still didn't meet my eyes. My voice wavered, but I held it. "I've helped plenty of times, Ethan." The unspoken "more than you know" hung between us. Claire crossed her arms. "It's just money," she said flatly. "You can't take it with you." The jab landed like a slap. I felt heat rise to my face. "This isn't about money," I said quietly. "It's about respect." Her jaw tightened. "Fine," she said, standing abruptly. "We'll figure it out ourselves." The way she said it dripped with accusation. Ethan finally looked at me. His eyes were tired, conflicted. But he didn't speak. That silence was louder than anything. Claire snapped the folder shut. The sound was sharp in the stillness. She tucked it back into her bag. "Don't strain yourself," she said sweetly. I watched them move toward the door. Claire's heels echoed on the floor. Ethan lingered for a moment. Then he followed without a word. The door clicked shut. The house felt emptier than before. I stared at the coffee table. The pen still lay there, unused. My chest felt heavy, not just from the conversation, from the realization of something deeper. This wasn't about a vacation. It was about where I stood in their lives. I thought of every holiday meal I'd cooked, every time I'd babysat without question, every bill I'd helped cover. And here I was, reduced to a signature. The sound of their car starting outside reached me. I listened as it faded down the street. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder. The smell of antiseptic still lingered. I sank back into the couch. My side throbbed with each breath. I felt the cold more now. Not from the air, but from them. I knew Claire's narrowed eyes when she left. That look meant there'd be consequences. She never let a refusal pass quietly. And Ethan, he'd let her. I reached for the blanket, pulling it close. The stitches pulled again, sharp and unforgiving, just like the words they'd left behind. A part of me wished I'd signed. Not for them, but to avoid what was coming. But another part, the stronger part, was glad I hadn't. I closed my eyes, trying to rest. But all I could see was Claire's smile. And the way it disappeared when I said no. The next knock on my door I knew wouldn't be as polite. The kettle hissed softly in the kitchen. A faint smell of toast lingered in the air. I pulled my sweater tighter and paused at the hallway. Low voices drifted through. "She's just being difficult." Claire's voice cut through the clink of cups. Sharp. Clipped. Ethan's reply was lower. Muffled. I caught only fragments. "Needs time, not ready." The words sat heavy. I stepped in. "Morning," I said, forcing a light tone. Their heads snapped up. Claire's smile was instant. Too quick. Ethan's followed half a second later, like he'd been reminded. "Hey, you're up," he said, pouring coffee. "Couldn't sleep much," I replied, easing into a chair. The chair's wooden edge pressed into my back. Claire slid the teapot toward me. "Tea? I'll make it just the way you like." I nodded, though my throat felt dry. She busied herself with cups, her gold bracelet catching the morning light. Her movements were careful, practiced, like she wanted me to notice her effort. "So," she began, stirring sugar into her own cup. Her tone had softened now. "I was thinking, maybe you could stay with the kids next weekend. Give Ethan and me some time to handle this trip. It might be easier for you." I took the cup she offered. The porcelain was warm, almost too warm in my hands. "Claire," I said slowly, "I told you yesterday, I'm not comfortable signing anything right now. My head's still foggy from the surgery." Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to me. A tiny smile played at her lips. "I'm not asking you to sign anything today. Just think about it. In the meantime, being with the kids could be good for you." Good for me. Like I was the one who needed fixing. "I'm fine here," I said, keeping my voice steady. Her hand paused midair. The smile didn't drop, but something in her eyes cooled. Ethan cleared his throat. "Claire, maybe." She cut him off with a soft laugh. "Well, I was only trying to help." Then the faintest roll of her eyes as she turned back to the counter. Quick. But not quick enough. A knot formed in my chest. I sipped the tea, but the taste was bitter. Later that afternoon, I went to take my medication. The blister pack sat on my nightstand, exactly where I'd left it. But the pills weren't lined up the same way. 2 empty slots sat farther down the row, not where I'd been taking them. My hand hovered over the pack. I counted. Twice. I knew. Someone had touched them. A small thing, maybe. But it felt like someone had reached inside my pocket, my purse, my skin. I sat on the edge of the bed. The house was quiet. Downstairs, a faint laugh echoed, Claire's, soft and polite. By evening, the air in the house had shifted. Ethan was late. The clock's ticking grew louder in the dim living room. Claire moved through the space with easy grace, a folded blanket in her hands. Ethan mentioned you might want more pillows, she said. I'm fine, I replied, not looking up from the book I wasn't reading. Her smile was steady. All right then. I'll just leave these here. She set them down, the fabric brushing my arm. Her perfume, sweet powdery, lingered a little too long. It was close to midnight when I woke to the sound. A faint click. The front door easing shut. I lay still, my heart thudding in my ears. Ethan should have been home hours ago. My mind ran in circles. Work late? With friends? Or? The hum of the refrigerator downstairs seemed louder now. The floorboards creaked faintly. Then silence. Morning light spilled across the room, but the unease stayed. Ethan's jacket hung carelessly over a chair, his shoes by the door. I didn't hear him come in. At breakfast, he avoided my eyes. Claire moved between stove and table like nothing was out of place. Her voice was bright. Sleep well? I wanted to ask, but my tongue stayed heavy. Instead, I stirred my tea. The spoon clinked against the cup, sharp in the quiet. I kept thinking about those missing pills. The way Claire's smile never quite reached her eyes. And the door. Always the door. My mind whispered questions I wasn't ready to speak. Not yet. But I could feel something was coming. And it was already in the house. Final line sting. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time. The rain tapped against the living room window. I sat with my laptop balanced on my knees. The stitches still pulled if I leaned too far. The air smelled faintly of coffee gone cold. I opened my bank account slowly. The screen glowed in the dim light. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. One click. Another. The numbers loaded. At first, nothing seemed strange. Then my eyes caught on a line. Weekend resort, $1,280. My breath caught in my throat. I scrolled further. Designer handbag, $1,095. The date was 2 weeks ago. I was in bed that whole week. My chest tightened. I scrolled faster now. Small charges here, big ones there. Some from stores I'd never stepped into. The cursor hovered over another date. That weekend, I'd been recovering from fever. I remembered the nurse's visit, the smell of alcohol wipes. While I lay here, someone was spending my money. I felt my pulse in my temples. I grabbed a notepad from the side table. Each transaction got a line, a date, a total. The page filled too quickly. Ethan's footsteps creaked down the hallway. I looked up as he entered. Can we talk? I asked quietly. He froze for half a second. About what? He asked, casual. His voice didn't match the flicker in his eyes. I turned the laptop toward him. These, I said. They're not mine. He glanced at the screen, then away. Maybe it's a billing error, he said. His hand rubbed the back of his neck. I shook my head. They match dates I was in bed, I said. No one else has my card. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. Ethan shifted his weight. Well, Claire sometimes runs errands for you, he said. She might have, mixed cards. His eyes flicked toward the hallway. Mixed cards for a resort? I asked. For a handbag I've never seen? The taste in my mouth went bitter. Before he could answer, she appeared. Claire leaned against the doorway, casual but sharp. What's all this? She asked, smiling. Her eyes moved from the screen to my face. Just sorting out some statements, I said. Her hand landed on Ethan's arm. We'll sort this later, she said gently. Her tone was honey over glass shards. No, I said, keeping my voice steady. We'll sort this now. My hand rested on the notebook. The numbers stared back like bruises. Claire's smile didn't move. You've been under a lot of medication, she said. Numbers can get confusing. The implication burned hotter than the tea kettle. I'm not confused, I said quietly. My words felt heavy anchored. The ticking clock filled the silence. Ethan cleared his throat. Maybe we should just talk later, he said. He looked at her, not me. The air between them was a closed door. I'll be printing these, I said, and calling the bank tomorrow. The decision settled cold in my chest. Claire tilted her head, voice still sweet. Do what you need to, dear, she said. But mistakes like this, they happen. Her fingers squeezed Ethan's arm once. They turned to leave, slow and controlled. The scent of her perfume lingered behind. I sat very still until their voices faded. Then I reached for my phone. Scrolling back through the charges, I matched each to dates, times, and receipts. Everyone had an alibi, my alibi. Bedridden, bandaged, barely able to move. This wasn't a mix-up. It was a plan. And she was counting on my silence. The more I looked, the deeper it went. Hotel stays, restaurant bills, online orders. It was a slow bleed, careful and deliberate. Enough to hurt, not enough to scream theft. My mind replayed her words. We'll sort this later. That wasn't a delay. It was a warning. I closed the laptop and sat back. The room felt smaller now, the shadows thicker. Every sound carried weight, the creak of a chair, the muffled laugh from the hallway. I thought about calling the bank tonight. But no, too soon, too obvious. She'd see it in my eyes by morning. I needed to move quietly. I picked up the hairband Becca gave me. It sat warm in my palm, light but solid. A reminder that not everything was tainted. Not yet. I opened the drawer and pulled out an old folder. Inside were past statements, neatly clipped. This time, I'd line them all up. I'd see just how far back the bleeding went. The sound of Claire's laughter drifted in. It was light, practiced, and it didn't reach her eyes. I knew that laugh now. It was the sound of someone winning. Or thinking they were. I pressed the folder closed. Tomorrow I'd call the bank. Tomorrow I'd find the exact number. And then, I'd make her explain every cent. Out loud. Where Ethan could hear. Where she couldn't smile her way out. The rain outside grew heavier. It beat against the glass, steady and patient. Just like I would be. But under the patience, something sharper was taking shape. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. And I was taking mine back. I reached for my pen and wrote one final line. At the bottom of the notepad. This is only what I've found so far. The Sunday air was crisp and cool. I'd dressed in my best cardigan, hoping for peace. The ride to Claire's parents' house was quiet. Ethan kept his eyes on the road. The house smelled of rosemary and roast chicken. Claire greeted me with a bright, tight smile. So glad you made it, she said. Her eyes flicked over my outfit like a checklist. I forced a polite smile. Thank you for inviting me. Her hand on my arm was warm, but her grip lingered a second too long. The dining room was set for 8. Polished silverware gleamed under the chandelier. Claire's parents, Robert and Linda, waved from their seats. They looked like the type who measured people in glances. Come sit here, Claire said, patting the chair. It was between her and Linda. I lowered myself slowly, stitches tugging. The smell of baked bread made my stomach ache. Small talk floated around the table. Claire poured wine into my glass. Just a splash, she said sweetly. You don't want to get too fuzzy. A few polite laughs trickled down the table. I sipped water instead. The roast chicken was carved, plates passed. Warm steam rose, carrying herbs and garlic. Halfway through the meal, she began. You know, Claire said lightly, Mom. She's been forgetting the funniest little things lately. Her fork clinked against the plate. I looked up. Excuse me. Oh, nothing serious, she said quickly. But last week she couldn't even remember where her own checkbook was. Laughter bubbled from her side of the table. I set my fork down, hand steady. That's not quite what happened, I said. Ethan kept his eyes on his potatoes. Claire waved a hand, like shooing a fly. We all forget things, she said. But when it comes to money... Her voice softened, almost pitying. Linda leaned forward, elbows on the table. Maybe you need help managing things, she suggested. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Her eyes scanned me like a ledger. A hollow heat spread through my chest. I'm perfectly capable, I said calmly. The smell of chicken turned heavy. No one picked up the thread. Robert poured himself more wine. Ethan still said nothing. Claire took another bite, smiling to herself. The silverware clinked like little hammers. You know, Claire continued, bank errors can be so confusing for anyone. She glanced at me, letting the word hang. The word wasn't anyone. It was you. Linda chuckled. Well, maybe it's time you let these two help you sort things out. The table felt smaller, closing in. I'm fine, I repeated, voice tight. The napkin in my lap was wrinkled now. I folded it again just to keep my hands busy. Ethan finally looked up, but only at Claire. I think we should just enjoy dinner, he said. It sounded like a truce for them, not me. Claire's smile widened like she'd won something. She topped up Linda's glass. I chewed the rest of my chicken in silence. Each bite was dry, hard to swallow. The laughter on their side was easy. Mine sat stuck behind my teeth. When dessert came, I declined politely. Oh, come on, Claire said. It's not like you're driving home tonight. The joke drew another ripple of laughter. I pushed my chair back. Thank you, but I think I'll head out. My voice was steady, but my cheeks burned. The room went quiet for a beat. Of course, Linda said, a little too sweet. Rest is important at your age. The words stung sharper than the wine's smell. I forced a nod and turned toward the door. In the hallway, the light was dimmer. I reached for my coat, heart pounding. From the dining room, chairs scraped. Then Claire's voice, lower but clear enough. Don't worry, we'll get her to sign eventually. The words sliced through me clean. Robert chuckled in response. My hands clenched the coat tighter. I stepped out into the cool night. The air felt like freedom and frost together. Ethan didn't follow me right away. The porch light hummed above my head. When he finally emerged, he avoided my eyes. You didn't have to leave so early, he said. I didn't want dessert, I replied simply. He shrugged like that ended it. The drive home was silent again. Streetlights flicked across his face in bands. I stared out the window, planning quietly. This wasn't just greed. It was a plan. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my decision was set like concrete. I wouldn't wait for them to come to me. I'd find out exactly how far this went. And then they'd both see. I wasn't the one who needed managing. The pharmacy smelled faintly of antiseptic and cinnamon gum. I moved slowly down the aisle, the stitches still tender. My basket was light, just my prescription and a box of tea. The hum of the refrigerator cases filled the quiet. Margaret. The voice made me pause. I turned and saw Rosa by the blood pressure machine. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with more gray. Rosa, I said, smiling despite myself. It had been years since we'd lived side by side. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the aisle. Can we talk a second? She asked softly. Something in her tone made my stomach dip. I nodded, pushing the basket higher on my arm. We moved to a corner near the greeting cards. Her voice dropped even lower. I work at the bank now, she whispered. Part-time, behind the counter. I felt my pulse quicken. Her eyes held mine, steady and careful. I've seen withdrawal slips in Claire's handwriting, she said. Her words landed like stones in my chest. More than once. Large amounts. The air seemed to thin between us. I swallowed hard. You're sure it was her? She signed her own name on one, Rosa said. On others, well, the handwriting wasn't yours. The hum of the coolers suddenly felt too loud. My hands tightened around the basket handle. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. But please don't mention this to anyone. Rosa's mouth pressed into a thin line. I won't, she promised. But be careful. It didn't look innocent. Her eyes softened, the same way they did when she once handed me soup after my husband died. I forced a small smile. You've already done more than you know. We hugged briefly, the scent of her lavender perfume cutting through the stale pharmacy air. By the time I reached the counter, my mind was already racing. The clerk's voice sounded far away. I signed for my prescription without looking at it. The drive home was a blur of stoplights. Every red light felt like a countdown. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I knew exactly what I had to do. That night, I sat at the kitchen table. The lamp cast a small, warm circle over my phone. I scrolled to Greg's name, my late husband's friend, and the only lawyer I trusted. Margaret, he answered, voice steady and warm. What's going on? I told him everything in short bursts. The transactions. The dinner. Rosa's warning. He didn't interrupt until I finished. Then his tone shifted, firmer, sharper. You need to move certain funds immediately, he said. Tonight if possible. I hesitated, pen hovering over a notepad. Won't that make her suspicious? Greg gave a small sigh. Margaret, she's already stealing. The clock's ticking. The truth in his words cut deep. I took down the steps he gave me. Close one account. Transfer another. Open a new one in my name only. I'll help you document everything, he said. Don't confront her yet. Let her think nothing's changed. His voice was calm, but I could hear the urgency. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. I felt the hairband in my pocket, the small weight grounding me. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Ethan lit the screen. Claire's upset. You're being unfair. The words made my jaw tighten. Not I'm worried about you. Not what happened. Just Claire's feelings front and center. I typed and deleted 3 responses. Finally, I set the phone down without answering. The silence that followed was its own answer. My hands shook, but it wasn't fear this time. It was something sharper, resolve. I had proof now, and proof was armor. I wouldn't just survive this. I'd end it. I reached for the folder of statements. Under the lamp's glow, the numbers looked different tonight. Not just losses, breadcrumbs. Each one leading me straight to her. I thought of Rosa, lowering her voice in that aisle. Of Greg, steady in his advice. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel entirely alone. The wind rattled the kitchen window. Outside, the night was deep and still. Inside, I began moving pieces into place. This was no longer about holding my ground. It was about taking back the ground she'd stolen. And when the time came to confront her, I'd make sure she couldn't smile her way out. The knock came sharp, 3 quick raps. I was still in my robe, tea cooling on the table. When I opened the door, Claire stood there. Ethan hovered behind her, jaw tight. No smiles this time. Just matching, tight-lipped expressions. Claire stepped inside without asking. Ethan followed, closing the door quietly. She carried a folder, same one as before. It landed on my coffee table with a soft thud. Let's not dance around this, she said. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes weren't. I sat slowly, feeling the pull in my side. What is it this time? I asked. Claire opened the folder like a dealer showing cards. This, she said, tapping the page, is our trip. The number hit first, $12,000. It sat there in bold, like a dare. That's a lot of money, I said evenly. You can afford it, she replied without blinking. The way she said it, as if generosity was an obligation carved into my skin. I've told you before, I said quietly. I'm not paying for this. Ethan's voice cut in, sharper than usual. If you loved us, you'd help. The words landed like a knife twist. I looked at him and saw no hesitation. That's not fair, I said. The clock ticked loud in the silence. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms. What's not fair, she said, is you sitting on money you'll never use. Her voice dripped with false concern. You could make things easier for us, Margaret. We're family. That's what family does. The word family felt like a hook. I have my own expenses, I said. My voice was calm, but my fingers curled tight. You've had help before. This isn't about need. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It's about priorities, she said softly. And maybe yours are a little off. Ethan shifted, avoiding my gaze. I've been generous, I said. More than you realize. But this stops here. The air felt heavier with each word. Claire's expression hardened. Fine, she said, snapping the folder shut. You want to make this difficult? The perfume she wore stung my throat. Ethan stepped forward slightly. This isn't just a vacation, he said. It's important for us, for the kids. Do you really want to say no to them? A flicker of guilt tried to take root, but I pushed it down steady and cold. Yes, I said. To this, yes. Claire's eyes flashed, brief but sharp. She gathered the folder, tucking it under her arm. Ethan's shoulders tensed, his jaw set. The room felt smaller, the walls closer. Think about what you're doing, she said. Her tone was low now, edged with threat. Think about what this means for our relationship. The word relationship felt like a loaded gun. I said simply. I stood, ignoring the pull of my stitches. And my answer's the same. For a moment, none of us moved. The only sound was the hum of the fridge. Claire finally turned, heading for the door. Ethan followed without a backward glance. But as they stepped outside, I heard her voice, low, sharp, deliberate. We'll make her regret this. The words slid under my skin like ice. I closed the door slowly, the latch clicking loud. My hands trembled, but not from fear alone. The pain in my side was still there, but it wasn't the only thing keeping me awake tonight. I locked the door and leaned against it. In that moment, something inside me shifted. If they wanted a war over my boundaries, they were going to find out how far I could fight. Greg's words stayed with me all night. By morning, my plan was already taking shape. New accounts, frozen cards, automatic alerts set for every dollar. I moved slowly, deliberately. Every click, every call was another brick in the wall. Claire wouldn't see it coming. Neither would Ethan. By Thursday, my finances were airtight. The last transfer cleared before noon. I sat back in my chair, breathing in the quiet hum of safety. Now it was time for the next step. The part Greg called baiting the hook. I sent a text to Claire. Tea this afternoon? Just the three of us. Her reply came in minutes. We'll be there. No smiley face. No extra words. I could almost hear the calculation in her tone. I set the table with care. Teapot, cups, sugar bowl. And in the center, a neat stack of blank papers. The top sheet looked official. Columns, boxes, space for signatures. The kettle whistled just as their car pulled up. I smoothed my cardigan, ignoring the pull in my side. The front door opened after one polite knock. Hi, Margaret, Claire said, voice bright as glass. Ethan followed, carrying a box of store-bought scones. Thought you'd like these, he said without meeting my eyes. I smiled, taking the box. They'll be perfect, I said softly. We sat around the table. Claire's eyes flicked to the papers almost instantly. Doing some paperwork? She asked casually. I poured the tea, letting the silence stretch. Just some things I've been meaning to organize, I said. Her smile was quick, polite, and entirely fake. Ethan reached for a scone, but his gaze lingered on the stack too. We chatted about nothing, weather, the kids, and neighbors' new fence. Every so often, Claire's glance would slide back to the papers. I didn't rush. The trap needed patience. Halfway through my tea I stood. I'll grab the honey, I said. The kitchen was just steps away, but far enough for them to think I was out of earshot. From the doorway, I moved silently. I heard the faint rustle of paper. A pause. Then the soft scratch of a pen. Claire's voice was low, edged with satisfaction. She won't even notice. Ethan chuckled under his breath. Just keep it simple, he murmured. My fingers curled around the recorder in my pocket. The red light blinked steady. Every word, every breath, saved. Proof, wrapped in their own arrogance. I stepped back into the room. Honey jar in hand, face neutral. They both looked up too quickly. Claire's hand slid the pen away from the paper. Find it? She asked brightly. I set the honey on the table. Yes, I said. Right where I left it. The words tasted sweeter than the tea. We finished in polite conversation. Claire avoided looking directly at the papers again. Ethan made a show of checking his watch. Long day tomorrow, he said. At the door, Claire leaned in slightly. Glad you're feeling well enough for company, she said. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. I smiled back, holding her gaze. Me too, I said. We should do this again. Her hand lingered on the doorknob a beat too long. Then they were gone. Their car pulling away into the fading light. I locked the door behind them. The house felt warm, still carrying the faint scent of tea. I set the recorder on the table. The blinking light felt like victory. Rewinding, I listened to Claire's voice again. She won't even notice. This time, I let the smile reach my eyes. Because she was wrong. I noticed everything. And now so would Greg. The game had shifted. I was no longer the one reacting. They didn't know it yet. But I was done playing defense. The living room was too quiet. I'd set the chairs in a neat circle. The coffee table was clear, except for one thing. Greg's folder, thick and heavy with proof. I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. A shadow passed the curtain. Claire's heels clicked up the steps. Ethan followed slower, his head slightly bowed. When I opened the door, she smiled. Not a warm smile, a smug one. Family meeting, she said lightly. Sounds serious. Her perfume swept in ahead of her. Ethan gave me a small nod. His eyes slid past mine to the floor. Greg stood as they entered, extending a hand. Gregory Carter, he said evenly. Claire's smile flickered for a second. Ah, the lawyer, she said, glancing at me. I gestured toward the chairs. Let's all sit down. The clock ticked from the wall. It was the only sound as they settled. Greg opened the folder, but I spoke first. I want you to hear something. I set my small recorder on the table. The red light blinked once before I pressed play. Claire's voice filled the room, calm and confident. She won't even notice. The scrape of pen on paper followed. Ethan's chuckle came next. Just keep it simple, he had said. The recording stopped with a click. Ethan's face went pale. His fingers tightened on his knees. Claire's jaw clenched, but her smile stayed put. That could mean anything, she said smoothly. Greg leaned forward. It means exactly what it sounds like. He pulled a document from the folder. This is a cease and desist letter. Her eyes darted toward him, then me. Are you serious? She asked, laughing once. Greg's voice stayed steady. Very. Any further harassment, and we pursue charges for fraud and theft. The word theft hung heavy in the air. Claire shifted in her seat, crossing her legs. I think you're overreacting, she said lightly. This is just a misunderstanding. Ethan swallowed hard. I didn't know she was, he began. Claire's hand shot out, gripping his arm. He stopped mid-sentence. I kept my eyes on her. No more paperwork slid across my table. No more whispers about my memory or money. It ends today. She tilted her head, pretending to think. I only ever wanted to help, she said. Her tone was syrup, her eyes were knives. Greg slid another paper toward her. This outlines the transactions, he said. Every one you made with Margaret's account. We have dates, amounts, and security footage. Her fingers froze mid-reach for her teacup. The ticking clock grew louder. For the first time I saw it. A flicker of fear in her eyes. It was small, but it was real. Ethan finally looked at me. Mom. I didn't. His voice trailed off. I held his gaze steady and cold. You did enough, I said quietly. Claire pushed her chair back slightly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. Her smile had vanished now. Greg didn't flinch. You'll sign this acknowledgement, he said, stating you understand the legal consequences. He placed a pen in front of her. The metal tip clicked against the paper. For a moment, no one breathed. The pen stayed untouched. Claire's eyes locked on mine, searching for weakness. She didn't find any. Finally, she snatched the pen and signed. The motion was quick, sharp, almost violent. She shoved it back toward Greg. There. Happy? She asked, voice thin. I leaned back, feeling the tension lift. Happier than I've been in a while. The words tasted like quiet victory. Greg closed the folder with a soft snap. Ethan stood first, avoiding my eyes again. Claire followed, her heels sharp on the floor. At the doorway, she turned once more. This isn't over, she said, voice low. I smiled, small, unshaken. It is for me, I replied. The door closed behind them, and the silence felt like freedom. Greg gathered his things, pausing to rest a hand on my shoulder. You did well, he said simply. I nodded, my chest lighter than it had been in weeks. When he left, I sat alone in the quiet. The clock still ticked, but it no longer pressed on me. I thought of Claire's eyes in that moment. The fear, the shift, the crack in her armor. It was beautiful. Not because I'd hurt her, but because she finally knew she couldn't hurt me. The air smelled like salt and sunlight. I leaned back in the balcony chair, a soft ocean breeze brushing against my skin. Below, waves rolled in steady, endless rhythm. This wasn't their vacation. It was mine. My choice. My money. My peace. 2 months of quiet planning had brought me here. The mug in my hand was warm. Coffee, dark and rich, steamed into the morning air. Somewhere down the beach, a gull called lazily. The sound didn't bother me, it fit. I pulled the shawl tighter around my shoulders. The scar on my side twinged faintly, a small reminder of how far I'd come. Pain had been my shadow for weeks, but now it felt more like a badge. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen. Ethan. Just one line. Hope you're well. The words sat there, plain and small. I stared for a moment, then set the phone face down. No anger. No longing. Just a choice not to reply. Some silences were worth keeping. Claire's name hadn't appeared in weeks. Not a text. Not a call. Her absence was the cleanest gift she'd ever given me. I didn't miss her voice. The last time I'd seen her face, she'd been signing Greg's paper. Her jaw tight, her hands shaking just enough to notice. That image had carried me through every quiet morning since. The sun climbed higher, warming the tops of my knees where the shawl had slipped. I sipped slowly, letting the coffee cool on my tongue. For once, there was no clock to watch, No door to answer. A couple strolled past on the sand below. Their laughter carried on the wind. I wondered if they knew how rare this kind of stillness was. How precious. When I first booked the trip, I'd almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I remembered Claire's voice. Sharp, certain, you can afford it. Yes, I could. For myself. For moments like this, not for someone else's entitlement. I'd earned this sunrise, this horizon, this breath. Another wave rolled in, its foam curling and collapsing on the shore. I imagined it carrying away the last traces of their schemes. Salt water was good at washing things clean. I reached for my phone again. Not to check messages, but to open the camera. The photo I took caught the blue sweep of the sea, and the untouched coffee beside me. It wasn't proof for anyone else. It was proof for me, that even in my weakest moment, I'd found the strength to say no. A soft knock came at the sliding door. Room service, smiling, placed a plate on the table. Fresh fruit, warm bread, a little jar of honey. The scent of oranges floated up, bright and sweet. I thanked him and closed the door. Alone again, I spread honey on the bread. The taste was golden, warm, and uncomplicated. The kind of sweetness that didn't hide a sting. Ethan's message still sat unread. I knew eventually I'd delete it. Not out of spite, but because my life no longer had room for half-hearted gestures. A pelican dipped into the water, emerging with a fish in its beak. The ocean didn't care about grudges. It kept moving forward, endless and sure. I breathed in the salt, the kind that sticks lightly to your lips, the kind that makes you feel alive, the kind that makes you certain you'll never settle again. Claire might still talk about me somewhere. She might still tell her version of the story, but that no longer belonged to me. I'd taken my part back. The waves kept rolling. The sun kept climbing. And I stayed where I was. Exactly where I wanted to be. Because this was what saying no had bought me. And I meant it.